All right, we are recording again 2 days after our last recording, boys, because some pretty big news has happened last night. Um, Mikko Rantanen officially traded to the Carolina Hurricanes, along with Taylor Hall, for that matter, with Chicago facilitating as a third team in this whole deal. Colorado getting back Martin Necas, Jack Drury, a second and a fourth round pick. Chicago getting a third round pick. I'm not really going to actually bother with getting details correct too much in this trade because the main pieces here are Rantanen and Necas going to Carolina and Colorado respectively. We were talking just before we kind of jumped on the recording here, guys. Like Justin, you were saying this thing seemed to happen so fast. Like you sent the text of that there was news that this could happen, and then literally within 2 hours, it had officially happened. So, what's just kind of just get your guys' first original reactions to just this whole trade in a nutshell?
It was kind of like mind blowing. It kind of floored me for a quick second. I was on my way to hockey and was just checking Twitter, and then all of a sudden it was just like, yeah, it sounds like Rantanen's going to Carolina, and just like, okay. Didn't really know what to think of, other than I was just like, holy fuck. Like, maybe this is just like kind of a fake news thing. And then more and more tweets started coming out and turned out to be true. And I mean, there was all these rumors, like depends how many podcasts or what podcasts you listen to, but there was rumors of if they couldn't sign him, if they couldn't get a deal done, there's a possibility this could happen. I just thought they would probably find middle ground. Clearly that wasn't the case. And I think it left, I would say, the majority of the fan base about as shocked as probably how we all felt. Or at least me and Trav. I don't know how you felt, Brock.
I think as soon as the rumors started coming out of like there was the thought of the trade, I always suspected maybe it would happen. And honestly, like even since like this last summer, I kind of had a sneaking suspicion that Rantanen might be leaving Colorado soon, just because there was no extension in the summer and that's like you just kind of look at who he is as a player. I don't know how you guys feel. He's arguably one of the top 10 players in the league when he's on his game, but he's also a player that when he's not really feeling it, he's invisible. Like he doesn't, for being a 6'4" guy, he doesn't offer a lot when he's not feeling it offensively. So it's kind of a mishmash. Like I'm still honestly, I don't know really how to properly kind of compute this whole trade. Kind of how you've said this whole time, Trav. You haven't really felt this was real. Like we've kind of had about 16 hours to digest this. Like you figure anything out on your end yet, or are you still trying to just make sure that this isn't a dream?
Yeah, that's exactly it. I mean, I think it's just because from the time that JC sent to our group the initial rumblings about it, and then the trade was made official, like you said, less than 2 hours later, and then here we are, less than 24 hours later, Necas and Drury are playing in this game in Boston today with the Avs as we speak right now. Rantanen and all of landed in New York to play with the Canes tonight. So it's just all happened really fast. Like I haven't really had any time to process it, how I feel about it or anything like that. Obviously it's really difficult to see him go. Like he's been a cornerstone of this franchise for the last however many seasons. A big asset in the cup winning team. I guess really the one thing I kind of have on it now, that I think JCU sent this morning about Pierre LeBrun saying how they were in discussions last week that obviously fell flat was it's evident that Colorado acted very quickly once they recognized the situation. There was no no time wasted on this whatsoever. They like sort of kind of looked at it and was like, all right, here's what we have, and like we need to act now, not later, because we are just over a month out from the deadline. So yeah, it's just all happened very fast. I guess that's just my initial thoughts on it, but it's obviously Colorado realized that they're in a position where they need to do something because they made that mistake years ago of letting Paul Stastny walk to free agency, and then this would be an even bigger oopsie if they let Rantanen do that.
Let's get to that, actually. What's your guys' thoughts on how quick Colorado kind of flipped this thing around? Because there's been rumors probably, the last month and a half, 2 months for sure, that Rantanen was asking a pretty high number, and that talks between him and the Avs have kind of stalled out in contracts. But to make this deal at the end of January, when you still have 6.5 weeks before the trade deadline, like to really make a decision, just seems, to some people, might seem hasty by McFarland and company. But like you said, Trav, they kind of just weighed their options. They didn't want to risk anything, and they've gotten pretty good assets for Rantanen now. I just don't like. Where's your guys' stances on how this all played out from Colorado's point of view? Of Rantanen wasn't willing to really bring his number down to where we were comfortable with, and they probably didn't feel that they either didn't feel like he ever would, or they didn't want to risk talks kind of stalling out or just becoming non-existent at some point later on in the year.
I mean, eventually you got to do what's best for the franchise. At the end of the day, right? It's just a business, and you can't really get too, I guess, emotionally involved in all the players that you have, what they've done for you. If it doesn't make sense for the team moving forward, then you kind of have to make tough decisions. And, you see a lot of GMs that don't do that, and players walk for free. So the fact that they are able to get, 2 assets that can plug into your lineup right away, a guy that has 55 points in 49 games this year, that's pretty valuable. I'm not saying the Avs won the trade or anything like that at this point. They lost the best player that was traded. So it's very difficult to comprehend that as an Avs fan. But at the same time, we would all be cursing if they just lost him for nothing. They couldn't risk that. The only kind of hope that I had was, how late the Landeskog negotiations got, and they still got him done at, 15 minutes left before he became a UFA. But things were a lot different here. Kind of the whole image, or not the image, but like the whole deal surrounding the cap is, ever changing now. It's always growing. You got Makar coming up shortly. He's a blank check kind of player. Like, he's one that will set the new Avs internal cap if that's what they believe in. It sucks. Mikko was great. He was very frustrating, like you said. We've said it multiple times on this podcast that during games, stretches that he goes on. But at the end of the day, McFarland put his balls on the table, and he did what he thought was right at this time. And apparently, one last thing, like before, I want to give you guys some time on this question too, but apparently Tulsky has been calling and talking to Colorado since the summer about a Mikko Rantanen trade. And it really, like, that was from his press conference a couple hours ago. I was reading just some little tidbits on it, and it really picked up the last couple weeks. So I'm guessing some word got out there that things aren't close between these two, and Tulski kind of jumped right on it once again.
I'm just quicking on that. I'm wondering if it was kind of like he was offering Necas in the summer, but McFarland at that point, it's not an apples to apples trade. It's we're taking a guy that might reach a high ceiling, whereas you have Rantanen who is at his ceiling. Whereas now you kind of see the player that Necas has kind of become at this so far this year. And like you said, he has 55 points. Like you go on like a few deeper stats on NHL Edge. Necas and Rantanen are almost like identical players. Rantanen has a better shooting percentage, more of a pure goal scorer, but Necas is like speed is so much better and just fits the Avs fast play system. So like you're losing maybe 10 goals across the full season bringing in Necas for Rantanen. But you can make that up in other areas of the game because Necas is such an elite player in terms of playmaking as well. So I think a lot of people, just because Necas hasn't really hit his ceiling, they're worried about this. And we can touch more on like what Necas is going to bring here in a bit too. But it is one, I think, just seeing how Necas has started the year is what McFarland said, okay, I'm ready to make this deal because we kind of know what we're bringing in now for sure. But what's your thoughts on that, Trav? Like, just the timing of everything too. Like, I know Justin brought up the cap. Sorry, Trav, we'll get to you here. But like the Caps, there's been talk of it going up to about 97 million for next year, and that anyone that's saying like, yeah, the Caps going to spike, and why aren't you going to pay guys like Rantanen? A lot of teams, like there's maybe 5 or 6 teams in the league that don't operate on an internal cap system, and a lot of teams like they have a Nathan McKinnon where it's like there's only about 1 or 2 guys on your roster that you're willing to pay, and if you're going to overpay past what your superstar player's making, it's not going to be by a whole lot. So, but Trav, I'll let you jump in here too and see what you had to say.
Sorry, I'm just trying to kind of figure out where else to sort of go with this. Again, it's a huge process thing for me. Like
you're still working through the process of it.
Well, yeah, I don't know, man. It's just like I said, here we are. The Avs are playing Boston currently right now during this recording. Those 2 guys, Drury and Nate Chish, are slotted into the lineup. Like it's already unfolding. Just the other night we had Rantanen in our lineup. He's 5th in league scoring. He's been a monster this season, and so is Necas too. But I'm sorry. I'm just kind of a little lost where to go at the moment without overly repeating myself.
So let's kind of go back to the salary and the contracts then, because the Avs obviously, I forget what Rantanen was actually making, like 9.5 or something on the cap this year. So bringing in Necas and Drury, who are 6.5 and 1.725 respectively cap hits, they save some money actually for this season of going into the trade deadline now that they have cap space to use, and which really helps depending on what plays out with guys like Landeskog and Nichushkin, depending on if they're coming back or not for in the regular season. But Justin, you alluded to it too. You have Makar coming up. But the fact too is the Avs really, you have Jonathan Drouin as a UFA at the end of this season now. And they don't really have anyone else after that. Like they went from having to deal with the Mikko Rantanen contract extension before July 1st to all of a sudden, really, your only big question mark is, are you going to bring Drury back? Like, you have guys that you can extend once July 1st comes and passes, but you can't, like, there's no one else to worry about now. And it's almost like they kind of kicked the can down the road here in terms of dealing with contracts, because Necas is going to need an extension here. He's eligible come July 1st. So depending on how the Avs truly feel about him, they could sign him, and honestly, they might pay his number of about $9 million, because I think that's what he was asking for in Carolina on like a long-term deal. So the action is ramping up for the NFL playoffs. You can get on this action at Draftkings, the official sportsbook betting partner of the NFL. Scoring big matters most in the playoffs, and with Draftkings, you can score big too. Bet on game lines, passing or receiving props, or a simple TD score. It's easy. Go to DraftKings app, choose your game, and select who you think will score a touchdown. Be the first scorer, or have multiple TDs. Plus, if you're a first-time customer, there's a bonus. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code THPN. That's code THPN for new customers to get $200 in bonus bets when they bet just $5. Only on DraftKings Sportsbook. The crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, 21 and over. Age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/ice.
I'm curious on this. Justin, you're shaking your head. I know you're probably watching the Avs Bruins game. I'm guessing it's not going well.
Yeah, 3-1 Boston, empty netter. Now I can focus more. I was listening to you.
No, I know you are. I saw the shake of the head, so I figured something bad happened. But
yeah,
Butch, is it like?
You mentioned Drew in there, Brock. The one thing about this trade is it certainly opens up the door for a nice contract extension for Druin. Personally, I hope we can find a deal with him. He's been pretty underrated this year. He's only played, I think this is only games 17 or 18, and he's damn near a point per game. So, and he had his career best year last year with us as well. So I really hope now that we've freed up a little bit of money in the cap that we can get a deal done with Druin. Obviously, I would be all in favor of seeing a Necas extension rather than just a borrow, I guess, if you will. And a little bit more money to go around the table for the rest of the team too, because we're not dumping 14 or 15 million into one player.
That's exactly it. You're not handicapping yourself to a McKinnon, a McCarr, and a Rantanen in the next 3-4 years when they all get their mega deals. You bring in a guy like Necas, who's a star player. Like, he's proven to be a top offensive guy. And I think another thing a lot of people aren't, and Justin, you kind of alluded to this in our group chat too, with some other tweets that you'd sent in of the Avs might not be done this year. Necas, he hasn't played a lot of center per se in Carolina. He was drafted as a center. So, like, I'm not sure how Bednar has played him today, but, like, depending on how they kind of want to integrate him into the lineup, if they want to try him at 2C behind McKinnon, you all of a sudden kind of start seeing, like, oh, Middlestat is probably the odd man out because Jack Drury's also a center. And he's kind of might fit that third line center role pretty nicely, because that's kind of where he was playing in Carolina for the most part. That we might, I know we've talked about, like, joked in our group chat with the Avs going in on Miller, but now that sent Rantanen out the door, they might take that second round pick and Middlestat and maybe another draft pick and ship it off for a top 6 winger of some type here soon. So again, the cap space that they freed up just opens the door for the Avs to do so much more here.
Yeah, so to clarify kind of what you said, you didn't know how he's being used today. He was playing on a line with Drury and McKinnon. So he basically just took Mikko's spot today. And that line basically never spent any time in their own zone all day.
Yeah. Well, that line just skates too.
The only problem is it seemed very, very passy, like guys trying to give it away too much instead of just shooting the puck.
There was a bit of disconnect with that line today, and that's to be expected. But
yeah,
well, again, Rantanen was kind of the trigger man on that line, so McKinnon's going to have to go back to being like the guy that shoots if that's going to be a line.
But, and again, to your other point, it really feels like from the vibe I'm getting reading things online that it's not over. I don't think they're happy with this roster. These last 10 game stretch has been so mediocre. They're not scoring. Their power play looks just in complete shambles. Now they're missing their goal scoring with Rantanen. Like they don't really they don't have a pure scorer anymore. Like they have the best goal scoring defenseman in the league, but I mean, you need guys up front that, you can put out there and be like, we can get a goal here. And you know what, for the most part, that was Rantanen. Like he was kind of a game breaker in terms of goal scoring.
And the next guy,
what's that?
Sorry, I was just going to add, the next guy in line isn't even playing right now in Nichushkin. So
there you go. And I wonder, I don't know what they have in store or if they have anything in store, but you have to think, if you want to maximize this deal on Necas, you got to see what he's got at center. I think once he gets more comfortable within this organization and with this lineup, I didn't watch a ton of Carolina games, like playoffs thing or the odd regular season game, but if he has that flexibility, you have to try it there, especially if the reports are true that they're kind of growing tired of Middlestat already. This seems kind of like a team that is kind of desperate to get back to where they were a couple years ago. A team that other teams did not want to play. I don't really get that vibe anymore with this team right now. Again, missing Nichushkin, missing Landeskog are huge in that because those are two big wingers that cause a lot of chaos for that team. So I don't know. I kind of wonder about a Brock Nelson from Long Island. Doesn't really fit the mold, but he does score. I'm just trying to think of guys that they can kind of fit in for now to kind of try to salvage this season. There's been a lot of weird talk about JT Miller too, but I'm not buying into that stuff yet.
Honestly, that was actually where I was going to go because I was always hesitant on bringing Miller in when Rantanen was still there because Rantanen's such a big part of the team. And if you go back, there's been articles and rumors of how even McKinnon's high spirited, in your face kind of personality rubbed Rantanen the wrong way at times. And if you added Miller to that without Landeskog in that room, you might disconnect Rantanen like the Canucks have disconnected Pettersson. I just wonder now, maybe if Rantanen's out of that dressing room, they do try to go after Miller because you have a guy like McKinnon his ferocious attitude is going to keep Miller in check or keep pushing Miller to just be on top of his game all the time. That's kind of my stance on that now.
Yeah, I think it seems very likely that they're not done. I think the door is just blown wide open now, though. There's so many things, so many directions, I think now at the current moment that this team could go in. It's hard to kind of put a pinpoint on everything or which direction they'll go. I mean, based on when they're getting bodies back. Is anything going to happen with Middlestat? Is he going to stay? He did have a big night the other night, right after that rumor kind of was floating around about him not being up to snuff lately. He had a 3-point night. So, I mean, yeah, it's hard to say. The door's wide open. That's the biggest thing. I also heard today, and this is a little bit more of an underrated note for the Avs, but I guess Miles Wood is expected to be back any day now. He's on the road trip with the team. I know Wood's maybe not a guy that is gonna fill a large void for the Avs, but the one thing about Wood is he's an absolute workhorse, and I think really the only other guy that is in the lineup right now like that is OC. So I think to get Wood back into that bottom six to inject a little bit more ferociousness and aggressiveness, just because we've had guys like Chris Wagner was playing today, Jarrett Inola has been in for the last little bit. I think there's one other name at the moment that I'm missing, but and credit to those guys for stepping up and filling in the role. But guys like Miles Wood are what we have him there for is to be that thorn in the side in the bottom six. So to get him back in the lineup to start, let alone Nichushkin and fingers crossed on Landeskog would be a step in the right direction here. Again, and this just all goes into the Avs just cannot be healthy to save their lives.
So we'll wrap here soon, guys. Let's kind of end on this. What's just your overall thoughts on how McFarland's kind of treated this year? Because, I mean, it was an easy year for the Avs to just kind of roll over and say, well, injuries, our first round picks top 10 protected, and with all the injuries and that, they could have very easily traded off some guys. They could have traded Rantanen a lot sooner, got a big haul, and just basically written off this whole year, kind of like what we discussed earlier in the season. But McFarland's kind of went out and said, no, they're almost doing like what the Washington Capitals did a few years ago, and we're just going to retool on the fly. We'll take a few guys trade some guys that might be unpopular right now, but we're going to get a little bit younger, but not really dip too much in skill set. So, like, you sent out Georgiev. They completely revamped their net minding, and now they've revamped their top six almost within the last year and a bit. So, just what's your guys' overall thoughts on how McFarland's handled everything within the last calendar year or like 2.5 years or so here since he's kind of really taken over?
Yeah, there's no team that's been busier than the Avs in the last 12 months. That dates back to getting Middlestat last year, which, as far as last year is concerned, was a great trade. He had a little bit of a bump in the road getting going with us, but he was fantastic in the playoffs last year. Then you switch over to the goaltending this year. That's an A+ job by McFarland. It doesn't matter what way you look at it. You cannot say that the Avs goaltending is not a whirlwind better. Not one game, as far as I'm concerned, since they've joined the team, has fallen on the goaltenders. And then, now we're going to find out kind of where this big deal leads us. And they get Juuso Parssinen too along the way. He's kind of stepped up in the last little while, been okay. I know he's a bottom roll guy, but he's kind of shown flashes of being an all right guy for that bottom six. So just really busy time for McFarland and the rest of the upper management staff. But this is the big one here. We're gonna see very shortly how well this is gonna go.
I like it. Like, a lot of these trades are going to take some time to process, and especially with extending Blackwood. So far, the Avs have Necas till the end of next year, and Drury for a bit longer. Him on a bit of, his impact will definitely be a bit of a lighter kind of on the lower end of the scale. What I meant to say.
Yeah,
but I mean, let's be honest. When the Avs were needed to make moves and no moves are really being made, people are like, "Why isn't he doing anything?" So you can't really complain now that when he's kind of been pushed up against the wall, getting a 2C in Middlestat, fixing the goaltending situation, dealing with someone that probably isn't going to re-sign with you, and he dealt with all three of those. It's hard. You can break down what those trades have kind of meant, but I don't really think you can really criticize him taking action for all these issues the roster has had and potentially was going to have with, guys leaving. So this is going to take some time to kind of see how this works out. Nate just looked good today with McKinnon. They have just had trouble scoring the last month, like all of January. They have had a really tough time. I don't think it's going to last, but they're gonna have to figure out something. So all in all, I'm happy that they are doing something.
Yeah. Too much skill on this team for this scoring drought to continue long term. So, but you guys got anything else to add here with this situation? We'll touch on kind of what Necas is going to bring to Colorado in next week's Central Division midseason review when we go over that. But anything more on kind of Rantanen and just his time in Colorado?
Yeah, I just kind of wanted to bring up one thing. Like, I've been saying to a few people, I'm like, "Oh, thanks for the cup. Like, see you later, guy. Whatever. Like, you didn't really want to stay here, but no, like, he was great. He was a great player." And then, just some stats just to kind of go over what he did with Colorado. 619 games, 681 points. That's seventh in franchise history. 287 goals, sixth in franchise history. 101 points in the playoffs in 81 games. And of course, he helped bring a Stanley Cup. So it sucks that he's not going to be an Av his whole career, but during his tenure, he did more than what I think you could ask a 10th overall pick to do. More or less, like
kind of gave the Peter Forsberg vibes, right? Like kind of just outside the top 5 draft pick, but when you really look at it, was maybe one of the most skilled guys in the lineup every night. Whereas you compare McKinnon a little more to Sakic, just kind of the heartbeat of the team, whereas Forsberg, Rantanen they're the guys you expect to go out and put up 50 goals a year.
Yeah. So. Now all I'll say is, after saying all this, they fucking better not lose Makar in 2 years, because I might feel a little bit different.
I think you brought it up earlier that he's a blank check guy, and like I said, I think Makar is the only guy on this roster that the Avs would be comfortable at the moment to leap over McKinnon's current contract.
Have to be.
And I think that's ultimately why Rantanen was dealt, was because the Avs are still in a position they weren't 100% comfortable going over McKinnon's contract, or going as far over McKinnon's contract as Rantanen and his agent were asking for. So,
yeah.
Trav, you got anything to end on, or you still in the computing stage of this whole thing?
Yeah, no, I don't really have anything. Obviously, the three of us discussing it, it's starting to set in a little bit more. And it's gonna set in here in the next couple days, I think. You know, tough loss for the Avs this afternoon against the Bruins. Would have liked to see them pick up on a win, but obviously I think that's gotta be sort of sitting in the room a little bit, that a guy that gave quite a bit for your franchise in the last decade is now out the door in the prime of his career. So it's a tough pill to swallow, but I mean, the Avs did what they had to do. And I think really the biggest takeaway is that we didn't just let him walk for nothing.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing. They got something for him. Like, this situation could have ended up so much worse. It could have been another Paul Stastny, like you said, Trav. So
chance to rebound tomorrow again. So
yeah, it again. Like Justin, you brought it up too. It's the business of hockey, where McFarland's thing is, how can I make this team better today and in the future? It's not about making one player happy. So
it's not about making anybody happy in this league. Like, sometimes you got to trade guys' best friends on the team. It's just, you got to do what you got to do. Like, it's a cutthroat. It's a cutthroat position job to have. So, but yeah.
The only thing I want to put out, and actually put out to anyone who's watching on YouTube, or even if you're listening to this, reach out to us on Instagram or X at Snapping Around and leave your comments on what you think about this question. How well is Rantanen actually going to perform offensively now, playing in a more defensive system in Carolina? Because that's the only thing that you have to consider is Necas has 55 points, and Carolina's a very defensive sound team. He's going to be let loose here in Colorado, and once he really gets going, I wouldn't be surprised if he really flirts with 100 points this year. That's my only last thought. So thanks for tuning in, everyone, on this kind of bonus episode, breaking down the Rantanen trade. We'll get to more on what Necas and Drury are going to bring to the Avs in our Central Division review next week. Check out our Metropolitan review. I know we didn't touch on the Canes a whole lot because they were kind of where we thought they would be, but this would have been nice if it happened before then. It's up and live now, so thanks for tuning in, and catch you on next week.